by Arizona ECO Development LLC.
Mayor, members of the council, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm standing over here today because our technology didn't work coming out of the gate, but we had to back up hard copies. So I'm going to run the overhead so folks don't. I need to give you my address.
Your name and
Jason Gisi, 923 East Gurley, 86301. My neck's not long enough to kind of get over that keyboard. Thank you, Mark. So, the goal of today's meeting is to introduce not only the council but the public to our proposed annexation, generally in the airport area and Point of Rocks, north of the Granite Dells traffic interchange and south of the Granite Dells traffic interchange. I have 4 exhibits. I've tried to keep it as simple as I can. There's a considerable amount of detail that will have to be hashed out over the course of time. And the annexation subject to Prop 400. So this is the first of many public meetings that I'll be required to host. And we're happy to be here and we're excited to get going in the process. So from the 30,000 foot view, the exhibit that's up on the screen presently shows the 2 main land masses that we are proposing be annexed into the city of Prescott. And to orient everybody, generally we've got the airport right here. The Granite Dells Parkway traffic interchange is right here. The Dells subdivision located here, phase 1 is right here in the northwest corner. The 2 nodes to be proposed for annexation are south and west of the Dells subdivision along Granite Creek down into the Point of Rocks. The Point of Rocks exists right here. The northern annexation node coming out of the traffic interchange into Arizona Eco land, we're proposing extending all the way up to the north end of the airport. We're anticipating that the airport will be extended the runway, and so we'll be, I guess, talking through that in more detail as I move through my slides. Of note, and there's been a newspaper article, and there's lots of talk in the community about water, just like there normally is in the city of Prescott, or northern Arizona for that matter. It's a bit hard to see in this exhibit, but right in the corner here is Watson Lake. The property, the former Wilkinson Ranches, was, Watson Lake was originally created by a guy named John Duke. John Duke dammed it up in order to be able to irrigate his farm ground along Granite Creek. Arizona Eco Development is the successor in interest to John Duke. The water right dates back to the 1890s. Beneficial use, meaning the use of 375 acre feet of water, has been demonstrated throughout the course of time by our successors in interest. We spent about 2 years dealing with SRP on this matter because Watson Lake, Granite Creek flow into the Verde River to the north over the course of time, and SRP owns the majority of the surface water rights on the Verde River and in the tributaries that flow into the Verde River. And so it took about 2 years to get to the point where SRP basically said, we don't oppose your water right. I think it's fair to say that SRP is never going to endorse anybody's water right in the state of Arizona that could potentially conflict with their best interests, and I understand that. But suffices to say that we've proven up that water right in the eyes of SRP. The next step of the water right will be an application to ADWR to sever and transfer the 375 acre feet of water that we own. Sever it meaning sever it from the land, transfer it, meaning transfer it to the city of Prescott's water portfolio if we're successful in annexing the property into the city of Prescott. Prescott is a designated water provider. That water would go into Prescott's portfolio. Arizona ECO Development would have a water service agreement back from the city of Prescott to service our developments with our water. Fairly simple to explain, not so simple to execute. The next big leg will be the ADWR leg of the sever and transfer. We're very optimistic that with SRP, with their understanding, and I can't say they're a blessing, but they're not contesting our right. We anticipate that we'll move through the second leg of the water transaction, if you will, as quickly as we can. I'm sure that I'll meet plenty of folks along the way that will want to talk to me about that water right, and I'll be happy to talk to them. So my next slide is the northern annexation piece, and so that everybody understands, we're going to submit an application to the city of Prescott in order to annex both parcels simultaneously. So it's not a single annexation. It's a little, I gotta scooch it up just a bit to make it work. Thank you, Mark. Oh, I see. Got it. To the north of the traffic interchange, we are proposing a residential subdivision in the southeast corner there, labeled AED North Annexation. You can see the lotting. When we look at the northern annexation parcel, what we're going to propose to the city of Prescott is that we trade 652 acres, which is the land at the very top of the map, labeled City of Prescott or COP Airport Extension, for water. The reason that we would be trading land for water is that our water portfolio comprises approximately 80% of what we're proposing to the city of Prescott, meaning we own the water and we can cover that need. There's about 20% of our proposed density that would not be covered by our private water portfolio. In lieu of cash, in lieu of selling land to the city of Prescott someday, based on the city's plans to expand the airport and the runway, we're proposing a swap for water. The amount of water is yet to be determined, but I want to get the basic concept out there so I'm being transparent and bringing the complete picture. I believe the Courier article said that we have 100% of our water for what we're proposing in the annexation, and that is not accurate. So I want to be on record that that's the situation. The acreage totals are there. I'll just read them off real quick. 652 is what we're proposing to trade to the city of Prescott. The total amount of acreage is 2,190 acres to the north of the traffic interchange. 1,538 acres would be the residential subdivision that you see in the southeast corner, as well as green on this map, which is a bit hard to see, is Granite Creek. There's a giant chunk of open space that's built into our mapping. On the west bank of Granite Creek, the uses as prescribed by the airport impact zones are industrial, light industrial, commercial. They all fit within the FAA's requirements for what can go on at the airport and the land development code and the general plan of the city of Prescott. One thing I would like to mention is that the parcel that we're proposing for annexation is not exactly consistent with the general plan amendment that occurred in late 14, I believe. In late 14, we amended the city of Prescott's general plan in advance of this submittal. And so here we are 2.5 years later approximately with the start of the actual submittal. And so we're probably 90 to 95% consistent with what we proposed 2.5 years ago. Our goal, we're asking, proposing to be annexed in the city of Prescott. We assume that that will be subject to the land development code as it exists today. So there's nothing fancy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say going on here. We're working with prescribed land uses, densities, in the locations as proposed previously. Third slide or piece of paper. Now we transition south of the Grandin-Dells traffic interchange. Probably beneficial for me to again point out phase one of the Dells right here in the corner so that everybody has a landmark. Our land is west of the Peavine Trail running through the property here. This is the old farm ground that's irrigated today. We're proposing annexing 864 acres. And we are looking at, again, I'm making a full disclosure, in the lower right-hand corner of this exhibit, you see the Storm Ranch. We do not own this piece of property. We have been in conversations, not even negotiations, it wouldn't even be fair to say today. It's complicated, but we intend or are proposing to buy a portion of the Storm Ranch that I'm going to tell you is approximately 100 acres in order to buffer our project. There are lots on that exhibit for those who are having any trouble seeing. And the Point of Rocks exists right generally here on AED land and on the Storm Ranch. Our densities are 2.25 units to the acre. We have land to the north that is easy to develop, meaning it's flat, it doesn't have rocks, very suitable for development. This is where our density will be. As we transition south into the Point of Rocks, the density starts to stretch out, the open space picks up. Our land plan at present assumes 25% open space as required by the Land Development Code. I'm going to tell you, based on my experience, once we get the aerial topography and the drainage studies completed, our open space number is going to grow, not shrink. It just part of the process. You kind of start with the most dense scenario. That's how the land planners work. And then you start layering up your studies, and routinely and every project I've ever been involved in, densities start to shrink. Why would density be shrinking? Because the land's not suitable for development. Whether that's a drainage, a boulder outcropping, a combination of the two, there's plenty of things to consider. But I think it's important to note that we're at 25% open space presently, meaning we meet the Land Development Code requirement. And I think it's safe to say we're going to exceed it as we add the layers and we get more detail. The last piece is not included in the annexation because it's already been annexed. So highlighted on the screen now, we have commercial acreage that was originally annexed by Dave Cavan circa 2007, I'm going to guess. This property exists in the city of Prescott presently. This is the area that I anticipate will get the commercial development over the course of time. In a simpler time, meaning post-Great Recession, 188 acres or so of commercial land would have been a great opportunity. In the world of Amazon and a changing retail landscape in the country, what we're looking at are ways to basically absorb commercial acreage that we don't think is ever going to be commercial. And so specifically when I make that comment, EE and DD located here are proposed for residential use. EE, multifamily, standard apartments. DD, this MH floating, we're working on another concept. Construction costs continue to escalate, and we're looking at different ways to provide pre-manufactured, prefabricated housing in order to keep pricing, I'm not going to say cheap, reasonable there's really nothing cheap about what's going on in the residential marketplace in the western United States. So, as part of our annexation, we'll be tasked with providing a cost-benefit analysis. I will be including our commercial. It will be an honest look at the commercial, meaning I'm not going to be plugging in 188 acres of sales tax generated by retail and commercial uses over the course of time. We're trying to narrow it down to give, basically make our expectations, your understanding and the public's understanding of what we're proposing as accurate as we possibly can. We hope that pays dividends. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't in my line of work. So with that, I've done quite a bit of talking. More than anything else, I'm curious about questions, comments, concerns. Our game plan, as we sit here today, I guess our next move would be to formally submit the annexation application to the City of Prescott, which will put us on the clock. We have state statutes that we're required to meet for an annexation. We have enhanced Prop 400 requirements or regulations that we're required to meet for an annexation of this scale. And the intent today is to introduce the projects so that feedback can be gathered and we start the process of working towards, I'm going to call it the final deal. Deals like this ebb, they flow. There's concerns that are brought up that are legitimate. Developers acquiesce. There are concerns that will be brought up that, frankly, there won't be room. Those will be deal points. And so what our goal is to flesh out, basically the cost-benefit analysis for the City of Prescott, just like Arizona ECO Development, and then craft a fair deal at the end of the day.
Questions, comments from the council? Councilwoman Wilcox.
A few questions. You said that you anticipate exceeding the open space requirement, but one thing that's very, very important to the City of Prescott and our economy is the connectivity of open space and the ability of public, not only the residents here, but visitors and tourists, to access that open space from a public road, a parking area, and be able to enjoy it as though it's a much larger regional park. Do you have yet a concept of how that open space will be laid out?
Councilwoman Wilcox, we've spent a lot of time contemplating this subject. I'll absolutely freely admit that prior to 15 years ago, if you would have asked the same question, I would have said that's on private land and that's where it needs to stay. It's clear, it's been demonstrated that the open space, the trail system is an asset, not only to the community, but to the private sector in the sense of the development. And so our goal will be to create connectivity for the public and for the residents, both private and public, over the course of time. Specifically, when I look at the map, and this is just my opinion, we have a trailhead to the north, and I went with this exhibit because it's a little bit easier to see. But up by Tri-City Prep here on the 89A frontage, we have a trailhead and a parking lot. Trailhead and the parking lot are built for horse trailers so that the horse users can get onto the trail. Into the future, when we look at the Phippen roundabout and we look at crossing Granite Creek, and I'm having a little trouble seeing where that's going to occur. You got it. Basically Walden Ranch in this area. This faint line right here is the right-of-way line coming onto us through AD and then on into the Dells. That actually is going to end up going into Prescott Valley as well. This location generally might be an interesting conversation for a secondary access to the trail, meaning a public access and trailhead. Direct proximity to 89, good proximity to 89A to the north, and I look at it and say we've got room for the horses to be parked and handled. Maybe this is a non-horse parking lot. My bias is I'm not a big horse guy, I'll freely admit that. So I think that there's an opportunity to have that conversation as it relates to other access to on-site open space, which starts to get, really needs to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. But when we look at giant rock formations, the actual pointer rocks themselves, how that occurs, I don't know exactly. We'll be connecting not only with the Peavine Trail in the city of Prescott, but we'll have connectivity with the Iron King Trail in the town of Prescott Valley. So for the benefit of those that don't know the trail system quite as well as maybe I do, the Iron King's coming in from PV here. This is the Peavine Trail coming down through to the lakes. So we're open. We see value in it. What's the need? I'm not sure of exactly what the public need is. And then based on the need, how can we be accommodating? Our goal would be to accommodate. In our Prescott Valley subdivision, we are building a trailhead that we will build because we want it to look a certain way. We will then dedicate that to the town of Prescott Valley for their maintenance into the future. I think everybody in this chamber understands that maintenance can be a burr under the saddle in Prescott, Arizona. There's lots of different ways to make a deal and deal with things financially, but our intent is to maximize the opportunity that is the trails, and also allow for the connectivity that makes sense, I'm going to say. Because in some cases it won't.
What the city needs is meaningful open space that is connected as one large area of land, not little rock croppings here and there that are not connected. And what you show on your map is a lot of lots on either side of the Peavine Trail. So when people use those trails, they're going to be going through a suburb. What we would like to see, what I would like to see, and I know thousands of others agree with me, is preservation of the natural beauty. The landscape that's there, that they can see from the trail, is tremendously important to the experience of whoever rides or walks on that trail. But if they walk along and they see a bunch of houses with walls and fences, it destroys that experience. And I think it will damage our economy.
So just so I have it straight, what I hear you saying is preservation of viewshed for trail users. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's part of it, but we also have to be able to connect the islands of open space, the rock outcroppings, with each other, with the trail system.
So are you saying that the 25% requirement, which I interpret to be private open space, you think that there's value in that being public open space?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I think I'm happy to see more density further north, but we can rearrange it so that there is more open space in the junction of the Peavine Trail with the Iron King. That would be much more desirable.
Thank you for your comment.
And one other question.
Sure.
How many crossings across the Peavine Trail, and do you propose at grade or undergrade, overgrade?
So this is early for this explanation. So my caveat is until we get the drainage specifically, plus the topography, it's tough to answer the question. Generally speaking, as we walk the property and kind of look and say, here's an opportunity. When we come down the Peavine from north to south, and we get generally in the location here where you're seeing a crossing, the grade, the old railroad grade, is elevated significantly. And so the crossing in the location that I just highlighted is envisioned to be under the trail, grade separated. When we get over to the east side, of the development in this area. We're dealing with the town of Prescott Valley on the crossings, not city of Prescott. I just want to make that note. And then we have a crossing at grade presently right here, going into the Storm Ranch headquarters. And we're looking at the possibility of this crossing is kinked, frankly. Not real safe for the users. A liability for people in a car, including our neighbors that use that access. So we've been talking with Mr. Baines about how best to reroute and straighten out that crossing in order to improve the sight lines, the visibility, so it's more safe. At the southern location, we would be talking about an at-grade crossing. So it would be one of each as proposed on this map.
Is that crossing currently where the Seavers use the dirt road that goes into their
Yes,
homestead?
yes, ma'am.
All right. You said you would be dealing with Prescott Valley on the crossing at Iron King, but that's within your proposed annexation area.
Prescott Valley owns a right-of-way for the Iron King.
Okay.
It's their trail. So yes, they need to sign on to our annexation petition because they're a stakeholder. I don't think that's the right legal term of art, but you get it. And so we've had those discussions with town of Prescott Valley, and they're not opposed. They support it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Chisick.
Thanks, Mayor. Jason, assuming that everything goes smoothly, how long before shovel one goes into the ground?
So, the honest answer, I'm assuming that I get to a vote in approximately 9 months. Maybe it's 12 months on the annexation. The reason I say that is my experience on at the time, Granite Dells Estates annexation, which first vote occurred at 2.5 years. Second vote was like 2 3/4 years. So I'm assuming 9 to 12 months to a vote. I'd love to see it happen quicker. I just know from experience that as I enter the public forum and I host open houses, people are going to want to talk to me. They're going to want to talk to me about the Point of Rocks, about the water, and about the airport. No doubt about it. It's going to take some time. So let's just round up to 12. 12 months from now, maybe we get to the vote. I hope so. 12 months to engineer the first phase would be my best guess. And then, we're in 18, 19. I'm going to tell you, if everything goes seamless, it's 2019. A big unknown for all of us is always macroeconomic. What's the economy doing? What's the market doing? And so, things go perfect, it's 19.
And say the market went typically how it's gone, which is up and down.
Yep.
What do you estimate for build out?
So I'm gonna be specific in this answer. The homestead property is the best piece of property in northern Arizona. I think that development on the property, if we end up with 1,200 units total, that could be 4 phases on this project. If we allocate 3 years times 4, 12, let's round up to 15. I think that this would be a 15-year project south of the highway. To the north, let me switch slides. To the north, we're anticipating that we're going to have a big gap in affordability. Again, I'm not going to use the word cheap. And so when we look at Granville, for instance, in the town of Prescott Valley, last year they averaged $275,000 total for a new home, 180 closings. This northern piece would be our substitution in the marketplace for Granville. Nice, clean, but not fancy. The land's not fancy. It's suitable for mass grade. No rock. Generally flat by Prescott standards. Neighbors are Granite Creek, a sewer treatment plant, an airport, and a lot of cows. And so this project at 1,500 units, I can see it going similarly, You know, I would guess 15 years from the point that we're annexed, you're substantially complete as well, because in this case, of price point. Granville, based on forward-looking projections, has maybe 6 years left. So if a couple of years are consumed here in the process, and then I forgot to add, 9 months to build the first phase, so it's probably 3 years, we're probably hitting the market right on time with an affordable product. The main competitor would probably be the Deepwell Ranch to the west. I'm sure they're gonna have I'm gonna call it a more affordable alternative that they're planning for. But that would be my best guess. And then when we get into commercial, so I guess I'll add the leg. When we start to get into commercial, it's getting interesting already, because in this location, because of Highway 89A, we have Dell's Phase 2 that Mr. Fan tells me he's going to start right around this month. Dell's Phase 1 has been a great success. I expect Walden Ranch to be very successful. I believe it's Antelope Crossings over by Circle K in the Triangle to be very successful. So when you look at Granville, the Dells, our project to the east in between the two is called Jasper and Prescott Valley. We think that project will be successful. The access to the traffic interchange is funneling people to Highway 89A on purpose. And the commercial that's in the city of Prescott, I think the first calls have come, but it's real early, right? They want a really good deal. 2 years from now, as long as the market holds, we start to see the grocery store deal come together, which will anchor a neighborhood center. So if we think of the Depot Marketplace, that's about 150,000 square feet of retail on Mas Romenos 15 acres. That development probably starts to take shape on this side of the roundabout. It'll be on this side because the grocery store likes to be on the way home, and they want right in, right out access. So it's easy to get in, it's easy to get out, proceed to your house. And so, I'll even go on record and say I think it's going to be fries, because you have the largest fries. The two largest fries are on Willow Creek Road and Glassford Hill Road, and I find it hard to believe that Fry's is going to let Safeway into the middle of their area. The question in my mind would be, does that commercial land on us or at the Deepwell? That will be competing with the Deepwell for those types of uses. It'll end up in this area, it'll end up in the city of Prescott, and there's going to be more than one over the course of time.
Okay. One other question. You talked about the airport extension and trading that land, 600 acres
Yeah.
or approximate acres, for water. Okay, so we probably would need that 600 acres in the very near future. And would you need the water, the wet water, in the very near future?
Good question. The answer is no. The wet water can come over the course of time because we have 375 acre feet to build around. What my direct answer is, as long as we had a deal, meaning a contract, where we were comfortable that we were going to get the water, I'm certain in the future, we could make the Prescott deal, frankly, quickly. The land is free and clear, it's sitting in the county. In the past, there's been talk about whether land should be in the county that the city of Prescott owns or in the city of Prescott. So I've included in the annexation because it seems to me like most people think if you're going to own it, it ought to be in your city. It doesn't matter to us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilman Blair.
Thanks for being here. I have to say there's a long process, and this is the start of one. I've seen a lot of these come through in my time. One thing I'm concerned about, the future of the development and the Dells in itself is a space for a fire department and a police substation. We continue to strap our services at the city of Prescott, meaning public safety. And we're going out, and if calls for service are coming out of the core of the city of Prescott, traveling many miles to get to a 911 call or a fire call is not in the best interest of this community. So within your planning of your area there, have you given some consideration about a fire and a police substation piece of property out there, or would you?
The answer is absolutely we would. We have had preliminary conversations, very preliminary, that basically broach the same concept. And so I'm fishing around here because I think that we have multiple areas. There's multiple needs. So speaking as a citizen of Prescott, who's raising his kids here, go to school, I met with Joe Howard. I said, hey Joe, you need a school site or what? School sites are a positive thing, generally, as long as they're not, I'm gonna tell you, as long as they're properly sized.
Right.
Instead of, speculative, just give me this giant area and someday I occupy half of it. We don't want that. We want a rational decision to be made for the benefit of the school district and for us. With the big picture here, and specifically to your point, in the Dells annexation, the decision was made that we didn't need fire within the Dells because it could be serviced from somewhere over here in the airport area. As we add population, not only on our map, but in the Dells, this is Prescott Valley, this is Jasper, so that's not Prescott. In the Homestead area at Walden Ranch, there's clearly going to be a need. City of Prescott, I guess if I'm running the place, I probably want to have two locations. I want a deep well location and I want a AED location. We have lots of land. Where best to locate? I'm guessing that it probably ends up in the commercial area with access to everything as immediate as possible. That would be for police and fire, first responders. As it relates to schools, I'm real interested because I've had talks with Tri-City Prep in the past. We have a lot of land that is not usable because of Granite Creek, and Granite Creek was historically mined for sand and gravel. So my curiosity is, can we locate the school, obviously out of the floodway, excuse me, and then can we utilize it looks like you put the Colorado River in the channel right now. How much of the shoulder can we utilize for ball fields, et cetera, uses other than the sticks and bricks for the school? Because I think what we can come to is a really a reasonable deal whereby we not only have a location for a school, but we have a location more of maybe a master plan, and I think it could even include a charter or two, frankly, almost like a campus. So those conversations will certainly be flushed out here, and that's why we're making the presentation. We invite them.
I appreciate it, and I would just suggest to city staff, Mr. City Manager, that conversation with the chief, both chiefs, is ongoing with the Dell's proposal as well as Mr. Gisi's proposal. We don't need to lose the opportunity of having public safety looked at firsthand in this community.
I agree with you, Councilman Blair. We've looked at it with Deep Well. We've had very preliminary discussions with Jason on his project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Jason, thanks for being here in front of us.
Thank you.
How presumptuous of you to have ideas on how to use your land. I think it's rather arrogant that you would even stand before God and country and say, hey, I own it and I'd like to use it, Okay, so then you brought up, let's make a deal, all right? Kind of sounds a little bit like President Trump, but God forbid. The idea of water, I've been a long proponent, some of our ordinances and codes are actually nothing more than public extortion. In order for you to be able to do something in the community, we're going to require this, this, and this. Do you see any other opportunities with the amount of land mass that you have that we could benefit the citizens of the city as a whole to have certain levels of concessions on behalf of the taxpayers and residents, not only for the schools, etc., but other public, like Blair was bringing up, police, fire, etc., medical, the demographic here has changed quite a bit. You look at the proximity of the airport, things like that. Are there any other ideas that you've contemplated? Shame on you for having an idea how to best use your property, but contemplated that might benefit the community?
Frankly, I like the trailhead. When I look at our existing trailhead up by Tri-City, it was built at a time when there really wasn't any fat on the land, and it looks like that. And so the quality of the trail, the quality of the view shed, doesn't match the facility that you park in, which seems like something simple. But McDowell Mountain Ranch in Scottsdale has a wonderfully simple and classy, timeless design that basically invites the public in to meet, hang out, and go ride your bike, well, in our case, ride a horse, but I don't want the horses there. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one, because they already have a spot. And go for a hike and enjoy the area. So I think that beyond first responders and education, the obvious next piece is trailheads. The other thing that we're getting interest from folks that would like to provide athletic facilities for youth. So the trend in Metro Phoenix and in large metro areas around the country is that volleyball facilities, soccer, baseball are going private. It always used to be Little League dads like myself who volunteer their time. And the cities struggle with the use of the field, who pays for the field, who left the field unlocked. Jason Gisi did after the league game that was vandalized. I mean, okay, so there's a struggle there. So private uses, especially along Granite Creek again, because I anticipate we're going to exceed the open space requirement, which gives me a margin that I can work with, where I could potentially take a piece of land that would benefit, maybe not in the sense of, because you can't get it perfect, kids and fields, and then we got to talk water consumption, artificial versus grass fields and use. But I can see where that has merit, number one, and so an extension of that would be a public park. So if I'm standing in Prescott Valley right now, I'm required to provide public parks. City of Prescott isn't nearly as focused on public parks because I'm not going to say generally they're looked at as a liability, but there are definitely folks that look at it as a liability. We have plenty of them. We don't need more of them. So parks, trailhead, and then probably some private utilization for kind of the same vein, a little bit different.
Thanks for that observation. I think as we move down the road a little bit, economic development, a lot of times in our community being in close proximity to Phoenix, the outdoors, the opportunity of eco environment, whatever you want to call it, stuff. People coming up here using our woods and our open space, for lack of a better word. However, I thought I heard in your language that you would like to have some of that open space belong to your development, not necessarily to the public. So as we move through the process, I would assume a lot of these details will work out in a development agreement, which sort of contractually binds the community as well as to the developer as to what everybody has a mutual expectation of occurring out there on your land.
Absolutely. The anticipation is we will have a development agreement that'll come before the council, so that frankly we have a contract and the city has a contract, and it doesn't matter who the owner is or who's sitting at the council or who the city manager is. There'll be a contract so that both parties are bound to an agreement, because it will take over the course of 15 years, Los Romenos, it takes time for all this to happen. The other thing that is out of the same vein that just popped into my mind, and we've been talking about the possibility of a storage tank early on, years ago. It seemed like a storage tank to benefit not only the property, but properties of Prescott in and around the airport area was a possibility. So a storage tank is something else that would be potentially addressed in the development agreement that would have benefit to the public as well as us.
Thank you for opening the dialogue.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Orr.
Thank you, Jason, for being here.
Thank you.
Good plan. A couple of things I really like about this, and that is the workforce housing. That's something that's in our general plan, and it's hard to find here in Prescott, so thank you for that.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? I
yes.
want to be careful.
Okay.
That's why I keep saying cheap or cheaper.
Cheaper,
You know,
yeah.
we get into federal definitions and legal
Yeah.
terms of art. And so just because I'm on the record right here, I might have to eat those words if I didn't clarify it. So sorry to interrupt
Sure.
you.
Well, and that's why workforce maybe as opposed to affordable or lower income
Something
housing.
out
Yeah,
of
we're
the
really
vein.
talking about something that people can actually go home to in the city of Prescott and afford if they have a young family. So
Correct.
that's the other big part of this, you know, you address several things that talks about family, children, schools. So that's something we also need in the city, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, and if I might, you know, when we look at the opportunity at the airport is clearly our jewel. We have capacity to create base jobs, which in turn create retail sales tax. And, you know, I've lived here now for 21 years. I have 4 kids, and I'd love for 2 out of 4 to be able to live here with me. It's one of my goals. But we export our youth and our talent really well around here. And I'm hopeful that in the scheme of really a giant piece of land as it relates to history in this community, we have the opportunity to focus and bring about some change that will be positive.
Absolutely, well, and so such better that we annex and control and know what we've got and work with you on this rather than you can make a fortune another way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Other than the water rights, water allocations, which you've mentioned, and a new water storage tank, what else are you expecting the taxpayers of the city of Prescott to pay for with this development?
So I wasn't expecting the city of the taxpayers. So the water storage tank would be a joint venture, in my opinion. I think there's utility to our company and our development, as well as utility to the public benefit. So just to clarify that, what was number 2? Or maybe it was number 1, I'm sorry.
What else is there that the taxpayers may have to be paying for
Sure.
jointly with you or?
I think the biggest thing that we have not discussed is crossing Granite Creek. We have a roundabout at the Fifth Museum that's under construction currently. The right-of-way exists through Walden Ranch on, you know, it basically dead ends at our property and then dead ends to the east into the Dells at the Peavine Trail. And so the question becomes, what does the crossing look like? We have 5 ways in and out of the southern piece of property. We have lots of ingress and egress. I think that our main entry would come out of the Phippen Museum, across Granite Creek, and into the northern end of the existing farm fields today. Shortest way in, and it's a Prescott entrance, frankly. The Granite Dells Parkway traffic interchange is great, but you know it's heavy, it's industrial. It's built to do something different, I guess is what I'm saying. So crossing Granite Creek, the question becomes, what do we actually need? There's hydrological studies that will dictate the flow of water through that area. The worst case scenario is the dam breaks. Okay, so I will be complaining that, you know, the dam hasn't broken in forever, you know, and the Arroyo study already contemplates the water's backed up. It's the 2nd or 3rd winter storm. We're at full bathtub, if you will, and poof, the water goes down the creek. So, like I mentioned previously, the creek has been mined. It's much wider than the flow characteristics that exist today. So, in my opinion, we don't need a bridge that spans shoulder to shoulder because it's an artificial scenario. The question becomes, what's the proper, because there's engineering that has to support the decision. That's one thing, and rational way to cross the creek. So specifically, when I look at it, I think that there's a big chunk of that's a low water crossing. And then there's a smaller bridge that spans the creek. And I live in the crossings at Willow Creek. Willow Creek flows through there. The city closes the creek crossing when the water flows high. If we have a combination low water crossing and bridge, I think it makes the most sense. I will be asked, as a private sector, to build a big bridge. I will complain and say, show me the rationale for why we need this big bridge, because it's all dollars. To me, it's not a question of whether we're gonna have access. It's just a matter of what does the access look like, how much does it cost, and who's gonna pay for it. So, as I sit here today, that bridge, in my opinion, has regional implication. So it's not just the city of Prescott and Arizona ECO that benefits from that crossing, it's our neighbors. Our neighbors aren't going to cut a check. That's just my experience. And so probably that's the piece, Councilwoman Wilcox, that really needs a lot of work, needs a lot of clarity, so that both parties can understand, okay, the assumptions are reasonable, we understand the data, and therefore the result is something that we can all live with. Could the taxpayers be asked to pay for that all or part? Absolutely. It just depends on the package, because I believe how this is going to happen. Everybody's got a cost benefit analysis. City of Prescott's gonna tell me this is our sacred ground. We gotta have this. And I'm gonna say this is our sacred ground. And then there's gonna be a bunch of stuff below the sacred ground on both sides that you just make the deal on and move forward. And it won't be perfect. We're gonna have people complaining on both sides of the aisle and from every different constituency. But what I think the opportunity, when I can remember getting beat on about the Dells annexation, and the comment was, development happens incrementally, so we can't plan a large area and get it right to begin with, because that's just not how the land ownership works, and it's not how the market works. In this case, we actually have an opportunity to master plan a giant chunk of land. And in that opportunity, I think it's going to be easier, frankly, to find the accommodations that both parties need to make in order to cut a fair deal. So I think I answered your question. I kind of got off on a tangent.
Any other infrastructure improvements that the taxpayers?
Well, trailhead. So let's talk trailhead. I think trailhead is something that we want. That's why I'm bringing it up. I think the public would like a nice trailhead, not just a parking lot. The deal that I cut in Prescott Valley was, we want it to be nice, therefore we're going to build it. And then probably we'll hold on to maintenance for, I'm gonna tell you, 5 to 10 years. So because it's at our front entrance, it's a feature of that subdivision. We wanna make sure that it's maintained our way. And then we would dedicate that public feature on to the town of Prescott Valley in this case. So I don't know how you slice that one up. You know, if we go build a trailhead and we dedicate it to the city of Prescott, and the city of Prescott takes it for maintenance into the future, is that a zero? I don't know what the net is, because I think it's fair to say that different people would calculate the math differently. That's generally my experience. But
What about increasing the size and capacity of sewer and water lines?
for the benefit of the public? Who would I be increasing? You're saying over and above our need?
Yes, adjoining properties, yet to be developed properties.
Yeah, so historically, the way that happens is, the engineers quantify what our needs are for our subdivision. Sometimes, not routinely, the municipality may come back to us and say, we want a 10-inch line instead of an 8-inch line. And generally, the municipality would pay for the upgrade over and above the line that we need. So that would be a pro rata type deal. The area, frankly, is blessed with infrastructure. And so my best guess is that the conversations about upsizing are going to be very limited, because we don't have a neighbor necessarily that would benefit from that activity that you can plan for from in the future that I can anticipate. It might be us that proposes that, frankly, on the north end, but you can see that we're not anticipating that need, or otherwise we would have proposed it now, because I can guarantee you, I don't want to go through another Prop 400 annexation. I'm hoping the second one is the last one of my career.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Orr?
So Jason, my other question I forgot to answer was, when might we have something that we can really hold on to and read and see and share and talk about with the public?
So there's a couple of big things we need to get done in order to drill into detail in the Pointer Rocks area specifically. Aerial topography, we have, I got the proposals yesterday in order to order the aerial topography. And then the secondary piece of that is there is a lot of drainage coming off of Glassford Hill that moves through this property over to Granite Creek. So master drainage study, topography. The topo's an easy one. You know, if I sign the proposal tonight, I'm probably done in 30 days. Drainage study. Drainage. 90 days. Right? So I'm gonna go up to 120. Could be about 120 days. It just takes time, and obviously if we come to this meeting and people said, there's the door, go pound sand, we wouldn't spend those dollars. It's not cheap. So that on our critical path as it relates to the next level of planning, we need those two items, as well as we start spending money and time on the cost benefit analysis. We're going to need an archaeological report that could impact densities and open space as well. In fact, I expect it's going to. So we enter the process. No one guarantees us anything other than it feels like we should be doing what we thought we should be doing. Now we start spending the money and the time in order to get down to the exact detail. And as the detail's available, we start presenting it. I'll be working with Craig and Michael, and I'm sure they'll be bringing things to you guys as it's deemed necessary and important. And the other part of it is in an annexation like this, I end up in a lot of the meetings. You know, hey, what are you doing for coffee? I want to talk to you. Okay. You know, and that's just practically how it works.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Trailhead, let's go back there because you keep bringing that one up. Is it the trailhead now? Understanding I don't use the trails very much, regardless of the reason.
Got it?
All right. But would you assume that if you were in a legislative body that the trailhead is tourism oriented?
I'm going to say that the answer, Jim, is yes. And the reason I'm going to say that is because when I go visit my sister, I go use the McDowell Mountain Park, and because I like it. So I'm the tourist.
So it's sort of a destination
Yeah.
type thing for tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, you're sitting there, is the trailhead that we do nice things about, you know, whether it's with a bathroom or it's a visitor center, whatever the case is that sort of a parks and recreation development sort of a deal?
Yeah, Councilman Lamson, it would certainly be Parks and Recreation infrastructure.
Yeah, so it just comes to my mind that the citizens of this community passed a 1 cent sales tax for parks and recreation development and tourism promotion. This sounds like it fits both. Just sharing it with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council? Okay, we got a few minutes here to take a few from the audience. Somebody had their hand up. Oh, come on. Try to keep your questions and comments fairly short so we can get to more people.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Joanne Ohlers, and I'm at 2911 East Granite Gardens Drive in Prescott. My question, I guess to address to you and especially to Mr. Gisi, has to do with the considerations for the current residents in our area, and what kind of impact there might be on the roads. For instance, Granite Dells Road, and also I'm going to just say the couple things I have to add to that. One is there any consideration for corridors for wildlife who exist in that area, for crossings and connectivity? And also I'm asking if you are considering working with the Granite Creeks Preservation Association in any plans for Granite Creek.
Okay, you'll probably have to help me out. I'm gonna start with the road though, because I remember that one. So generally speaking, Granite Dells Road leaves 89 here, comes through and then heads back to the Storm Ranch. We are not proposing any improvements to Granite Creek Road, or Granite Dells Road, I'm sorry. It's in the county, it's county-owned right-of-way. We would be planning for secondary access, fire danger. And what we think that'll look like is the existing, I'm guessing you've probably been up the road onto the ranch, okay? We would have a gate there somewhere, a crash gate, so that a fire truck can get in the event of emergency. But we're not proposing any improvements to Granite Dells Road or Highway 89 owned by the city of Prescott in that location. What was number 2?
Number 2 was, what about corridors for wildlife? Pronghorn, other animals that are roaming the area would appreciate connectivity between open spaces so they can get to one spot, from one spot to another.
So, complicated subject matter. There are natural drainages and corridors in the southern property up on the screen presently that are going to because primarily of drainage, frankly, that are going to stay open because we can't block them off. To the north, as it relates to pronghorn, on the ranch is actually 15,000 acres, so we work routinely with game and fish. Our last antelope capture that we accommodated game and fish on did not go well. The question becomes what to do with the antelope. The 89A corridor is going to clearly be developed, in my personal opinion. When we look at the northern 2/3 of this ranch, I don't know what happens there. We get into the legal right to water. How much water do we have? Who owns it? Who can use it? We also get into an annexation that occurred with the town of Chino Valley prior to our ownership that comes all the way down to the Prescott Airport. I won't bore you with the complication. Trust me, it's complicated. I don't know what will happen there. It could be a working cattle ranch for a long, long time. So I don't have a specific answer for you, but I will be working with game and fish like I do presently. And then in the future, I know that SIMPO has added a committee to work on issues like this, and I've been contacted by the committee. I've met with, I'm not the committee chairman, but I know a member of the committee multiple times. So we'll continue to talk it out.
Can I have another last question real quick about working with the Granite Creeks Preservation Association?
Oh, the creek, yeah. So we have the creek on one side of our property. The creek is planned for open space. So when we talk, I don't really know what you mean by preservation.
I mean, it's a local association, the Granite Creeks Preservation Association, who has done a lot of work at the Watson Woods, Granite Creek area, and I was wondering if they wouldn't be helpful or good consultants for any kind of crossings, Granite Creek crossings.
I am happy to meet with the Creeks folks.
Michael Bird would be the gentleman.
Sure, nope, happy to meet with them.
Right, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council people, and and Mr. Gisi. My questions are...
Go ahead and identify yourself, please. Identify yourself. And where you...
Pardon me. My name is Happy Oasis, and I have a couple of questions because I'm very impressed with the word eco, and I really appreciate you using that. And I was wondering a few specific questions about your eco aspects of this particular development. And I was wondering, and then I'll give you a chance to answer them, LEED certification, solar panels on individual homes or is there a clubhouse? how many miles of trails? Again, concern about wildlife and also homes per acre, or is it less than 1 home per acre overall? The first question was ECO, solar panels, LEED certification.
When we talk about solar panels and renewables, the vertical side of the housing stock is the real opportunity as it relates to the solar, obviously not the land development side. We're working with a builder in Prescott Valley on our Jasper project right now, who is ahead of basically federal guidelines. He's won the federal award for sustainability, I think 4 years running at the national level. And so it's part of our marketing, so I'm not going to share that with you right now. But we're focused on the vertical product and how we
Could you
can
clarify that vertical product?
houses.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So in the house, the big thing that we see and the people I talk to every day is the legacy cost. I moved to Century out by county. How much is it going to cost me to live here? Power bill, it's a big one. And so what we're looking to do is minimize those power bills to the greatest extent possible. The way we do that is through our architectural design guidelines. So it has nothing to do with this body or the city of Prescott. It's privately imposed guidelines and requirements on the vertical housing stock.
Would that be a yes or a no for solar panels?
Yes or no on which one?
Solar panels. Solar panels.
Well, we got to produce the power somewhere. Yeah, gonna be solar panels. Yep.
And LEED certification or some environmental, what would set you aside being eco from an ordinary development?
Well, first of all, we haven't recorded any 36-acre splits and just let it rip out there, which is our right per state law. We're annexing into the city of Prescott, which comes with good things and challenges, because now we're saying, okay, the new body is going to help us regulate what we're going to get to do on our private land, which is in part Councilman Lamerson's point. You know, so we have alternatives in the marketplace that we're choosing to ignore presently. So we come into Prescott, we do a Prescott rules, we deal with people like Game and Fish, we meet with the creeks. There's going to be a pile of people that will want to meet with me for lots of different reasons. Rock climbers. It's not just animals and birds. It'll actually be the human animal that wants access and connectivity, correct? And so it's the package. What does the land plan look like? How do we create corridors and connectivity and opportunity for people that live in our subdivision as well as those that don't? And then how do we create vertical housing stock that reduces our footprint, not only by the way we locate or orientate houses, but you know, how efficient are they? Do they use a lot of power? Does that tie into coal and water consumption? I pretty much talk about this all day long because I love real estate, and this is a huge opportunity for us, but we will be integrating best practices from horizontal through vertical. I promise you that will not be enough for some folks. So we have to deal within the context of the market as we do that, because I can't sell Mr. and Mrs. Smith a house for $100,000 more than what they can buy at Walden Ranch or at the Dells, etc. So we have to be able to develop our project, build our houses, and sell them within the context of the marketplace. And unfortunately, it goes up and it goes down too. So that's our risk.
Have you considered building the first
Ma'am,
eco?
we're going to have to move on to somebody else, so I think we've got most of your questions answered.
Could I just ask one and then I'll sit down?
Okay.
Just for
Very quick.
consideration. Have you considered individualized water tanks for each home as a possibility, or at least putting the footprint there for people's option? And also for eco cars, the first pump in Prescott. It's very future thinking, but it is coming. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take one more question.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Sandra Smith, 701 Whites Park. My question is for Mr. Gisi. On your northern property up by the airport,
Yes.
I see that it sits right off the end of where the runway would extend to. Now, the Deepwell Ranch is willing to leave an open space in there, are you?
Just so we're on the same page, you're talking about this area right here, ma'am?
Yeah, down a little further toward the runway where that
Over here?
juts out, yeah, in there.
I'm proposing that the city of Prescott own that land in a trade. So, obviously, the city has a huge investment in the airport, a vested interest in its success into the future. And so generally, this area here, I'm proposing that we trade that off to the city of Prescott so the city of Prescott is free to do as they see fit in that area.
Okay, because I've seen what happens when you build on the end of runways. It's ugly.
You know,
Thank you.
I understand.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gisi, and, as you said before, we're gonna have many more meetings and have more opportunity to discuss it, so, thank you. We'll move on to item 2.